Anthony Pettis gave mixed martial arts fans one of the greatest knockouts of all time.
ESPN never covered MMA. That was the first time MMA was on top 10 in ESPN.
With elite athleticism, youth, and an incredible kicking arsenal, it seemed he was destined for a Hall of Fame career. Unfortunately, his hype train began to die as he stepped up in competition and struggled with commitment issues to the draining and taxing fight game. Pettis learned the hard way that while you could be on top of the MMA world in one moment, your fall from grace could be just as swift and devastating. So the question remains, what fighters sent Pettis' career into a downward spiral? Pettis started his career on the fast track, winning 8 of his first 9 fights in the Gladiators Fighting Series, located in Wisconsin, United States. On June 7th, 2009, he won his WEC debut by triangle choke before losing his very next fight by a controversial split decision to Bart Palashevsky. After his first defeat, Pettis racked up 3 straight victories before having the biggest moment of not only his MMA career, but one of the biggest moments in MMA history.
Ben was the main event, and she was like, Mijo, you gotta fight that guy? She was like, stay away from him, Ben Henderson.
Yeah.
So right away, I was like, I want him. Like, immediately, I was like, I want him. He didn't know it.
You're like, thanks, Mom.
I was like, I want
him.
him. But the crazy thing was, like, he won the belt, and then it lined up for, like, me to fight him for the last title shot.
On December 16th, 2010, he fought Benson Henderson for the WEC Lightweight Championship, where he landed the world-famous Showtime kick. This move sent the MMA world into a frenzy, and combat sports fans were eagerly awaiting his next fight. The flashy performance secured him a chance to fight the rugged grappler Clay Guida as part of a WEC to UFC merger.
Maybe my strikes were enough. Was there any part that, or did you know?
I think I know the control-wise. I mean, I felt that he was on top. He did a good job staying on top. I couldn't get my submissions off. I mean, I attempted a lot. I hit him a lot. It's just I understand how the game works. I mean, if he controls you, you lose the round. So I didn't do enough to get up or get off my back. So big up to Clay, and I'm gonna work on it. Come back strong.
After the devastating defeat, it seemed like Pettis was nothing more than an overhyped prospect who couldn't defend takedowns. Just as he was being written off by MMA fans, he had a career resurgence, pulling off 5 straight wins against the elite of the lightweight division. After defending his UFC lightweight title in a rematch against Henderson, he joined the Ultimate Fighter as a head coach to eventually fight Strikeforce standout Gilbert Melendez.
I think what I want to teach these ladies is that, you know, there's going to be, there's 500 UFC fighters. What sets you apart from everybody else? What makes you different? What makes people want your autograph, your interview, to sponsor you? So that's the mindset I'm trying to give them. Because every girl in the house is in the UFC. They're not fighting for a contract. They're fighting for a belt. And they need to set themselves apart and make themselves stand out besides the other 16 girls.
At UFC 181, Pettis finished Gilbert with a guillotine choke, delivering a performance of the night. He seemed on top of the world once again until his next fight, where his career took a serious nosedive. He lost the UFC Lightweight Championship to Rafael Dos Anjos by unanimous decision.
I don't even know what happened wrong. I mean, going into the fight, I just felt off. It wasn't my night. Like, I was hitting with shots. I just knew I had like this mental block. Like, I can't hurt him. Like, I didn't have the power to hurt him. I just felt weak going into the fight. The rehydration process was wrong. I mean, a lot of things that went wrong in that fight that I'm gonna change for next camp.
The loss against Dos Anjos had a snowball effect. Pettis showed that he still wasn't competent against aggressive grapplers and didn't know how to fight through adversity. These same weaknesses in his game reared their ugly heads in his next 2 fights, where he lost to Eddie Alvarez by split decision and Edson Barbosa by unanimous decision. Up to this point, this was the worst losing skid of his career, and concerns about whether he should be cut and his desire for fighting began to circulate. This resulted in him having to seek outside help.
With all the work you've done with the sports psychologist and everything, that the distractions are, as limited as they've ever been?
Man, yeah, I feel like I'm the most clear I've ever been, honestly. Like, I haven't had the ability to bring myself back to the present moment like I can now. Like, usually before, if I heard a comment or I heard somebody like make a remark, if I read a comment, you know what I'm saying, it would take me on this like mind journey that wasn't conducive to what I'm trying to do in the training room or like.
After 3 straight defeats, it was time for Pettis to make a career change. In his next fight, he dropped down to featherweight to fight Charles Oliveira, where he won by his patented guillotine choke. The success at featherweight was short-lived, and what he did in his next fight turned the mixed martial arts world against him. He was given a UFC featherweight interim title opportunity against Max Holloway, and instead of being a professional, He came in 3 pounds overweight, making him ineligible to win the title.
Max Holloway, he's a beast, bro. Like that, fighting that dude, like you have to be on your A game. So he first time I ever got finished in a fight was Max Holloway.
I thought he was going to your pop to your body, and you're like,
he hit me with a body kick.
Yeah,
and that was the first time. First time I was like, that's what that feels like.
This was the first time Pettis was finished in his career, and the once adored fighter was the laughingstock of the combat sports community. In what was becoming the norm, Pettis was finished in his next defeat in the UFC Fight Night main event against Dustin Poirier.
I think it was a broken man more than a broken rib, but that's my thoughts, you know. I think, hopefully nothing is wrong with the guy, but I felt like the fight was slowly slipping away from him after the cut, and after the takedowns, he realized I was strong and I was going to stay on top. He couldn't submit me. All the triangles he threw up, I knew his legs were going to be tired.
While at one point he could at least survive the duration of fights, his durability was now beginning to fade.
I really want to see Tony versus Pettis.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting fight, man.
His next loss was arguably the worst of his career. In a highly anticipated bout against Tony Ferguson, he quit on the stool in the second round at UFC 229. Many fans thought Pettis took the easy way out by not continuing to fight, but he did suffer an apparent hand injury, which was a career setback. In another spontaneous career change, Pettis decided to move up to the bigger UFC welterweight division. Moving up divisions assigns a fighter is struggling to cut weight due to changes in physique or just general laziness. In addition to the weight change, he had issues with USADA, causing unnecessary distractions within his fight camp.
USADA comes up like, hey, we need you to do a piss test for your drug test. I did the first drug test, and it was too diluted because when you rehydrate, it's like too much water in you. So they had to do a second drug test, but I had to wait until I had to pee again. So I was about like an hour and a half before the fight, and I had to go again. And I told the USADA guy, like, let's go get this done. I'm closing. I do the piss test. I'm closing the second bottle, the first bottle up. I'm closing the first bottle up. That's like a twist cap. So I'm twisting the cap. I put it inside of a plastic bag, and I see blood.
After knocking out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in his welterweight debut, he lost to a past prime Nate Diaz. Pettis suffered from cardio issues, but showed decent durability and resilience. Pettis' career had officially reached limbo. He couldn't finalize what division he wanted to fight in, nor could he sustain a meaningful winning streak. He once again decided to drop back down to lightweight, only to be submitted by Carlos Ferreira by rear naked choke in the second round. Pettis eventually fought out his UFC contract and signed with the PFL after an up and down UFC career.
The amount of money they spent to host, the 3 or 4 fight cards last year and have their teams in there feeding the teams, like they actually take care of their athletes. Yes, I would say everything's been amazing with people.
It was plausible to believe he could build a good winning streak against lower levels of competition, but just the opposite happened. Instead, he lost back-to-back fights at PFL 1 and PFL 6 against journeymen. Pettis' journey ended in one of the worst ways imaginable. After getting just one victory in the PFL against Miles Price at PFL 3, he lost the last 2 fights of his career against the same opponent Stevie Ray by a twister submission, then a unanimous decision. Once considered a top 5-pound, 4-pound fighter, Pettis' career was quickly derailed through fighting better competition and a lack of discipline outside the octagon. However, the Showtime kick will live in MMA history forever.